Welcome one and all to the first official publication and telling of the False Gods universe. I am your host, Dagoth Ur, and will open with the Order of Cinder. You may be confused by some terms and characters, but they will be explained in due time. This is the story of one of my favorite factions in the False Gods universe, the Order of Cinder. Their motto is a chaotic one: we'll set the world on fire to save it. Following Apollyon's attack on Shoulders in the year 4748 of the Third Era, there was a lot of wreckage and material from Hell left behind, along with many demon bodies and remnants of Hell magic. The survivors of Shoulders claimed these wrecks and began to research them. The Order was founded by a man named Cassius Cinder in the year 4750 of the Third Era. It was centered around the demons, mainly the fear and hatred of them. They harnessed hell magic and formed a magic known as the Cinder. This is a very basic magic that allows for strengthening of the Order members' bodies and use of low-level fire spells. The Cinder allows the Cinder Order to forge demon steel and strengthen weapons. They have a hierarchy of warriors, with the leader being chosen through combat. After a long while, they began to train for destroying demons and stopped fearing them. The main goal of the Order is to seek out and destroy demons. Not everyone within the Order may become a warrior. There are a select few chosen every 8 years, and they must complete a trial. They are dropped into an area filled with moderate strength demons and must survive for 12 hours. All that succeed in the trial will become a Knight of Cinder. After they complete the trial, the elders of the Order will bless the new knight with strengthening magic and bestow them with the Cinder rune. Their eyes are also enchanted to be able to see a glowing outline on demons to differentiate from non-demons. These are called hallowed eyes. Afterwards, they are plunged into a boiling vat of demon blood, where their skin is melted to a pliable consistency, and demon steel armor plates are fused to their body. After this, they are a force of nature and are extremely hard to kill. The armor never comes off, and if a knight does take it off somehow, they are banished from the Order. The knights have a month-long recovery period after the trial and are sent into the universe after. Leadership can be obtained by any warrior within the Order. You must be a Lord Paladin of Cinder. Afterwards, you can return to the stronghold on Shoulders and challenge the current leader to a death match. If you win, you will obtain leadership and the heart placed in your ownership. If you lose, the leader may spare you and keep you as a slave, stripped of your armor, weapons, and Cinder magic, or they may simply kill you. Along with winning leadership, you are given the last name of Cinder and placed in the immortal name of Cassius Cinder. So every king has the last name of Cinder. The first king of Cinder was Cassius Cinder, of course. They did not start the demon steel fusing until about 12 generations into the Order's existence. Before this, the king was always the eldest of the descendants of Cassius, but it was uncommon for a Cinder to have more than one child. After they began the armor fusing, the line went wonky and they had to start the trial by combat system of choosing a king. However, there is still a long descendant of Cinder out there, and they still have claim to the throne. After a stray Andromean warship crashed on Shoulders, they repaired it and spread through the galaxy, spreading the Order and taking on more members. One of the groups settled on a planet they came to call Chagrin. They spent a century constructing a grand castle and laying deep, complex labyrinths underground for night trials. After the Order finished the construction of the castle, they remained for many years, until one day a group of initiates were taking their trial and succeeded. The elders blessed them with the strengthening magic and the Cinder rune, but when they saw the vat of demon blood, they began to have second thoughts. They escaped the castle before they were dipped into the vat and ran far from it to hide in an unnamed forest. They renounced the religion and came to be known as Chagrinese. Eventually, the great-great-grandchildren of the deserters returned to the castle and drove the remaining Order into the labyrinth underground. They established a monarchy and eventually forgot about the Order that remained underground in hiding. The Chagrin chapter underground remained fairly the same over the next long while and operated in secret until the destruction of Chagrin in the year 13,010 BCE, or year 1,963,916 of the Fifth Era. Yes, I know that's a mouthful. The Order took refuge in the underground labyrinth, survived, and took their land back. They ended up finding an artifact in the epicenter of the crater. This was the heart of sin, a powerful artifact involved with the birth of the universe itself. They took the heart and recognized its demonic origins. They studied it and eventually figured out how to use the cinder to manipulate it. Using the heart of sin, they found 12 Lord Paladins that were out of their prime and imbued them with power from the heart. The Order created a new rank above Lord Paladin, the Sentinel. Only 12 great knights could hold this role, and they would be the most powerful within the Order. They would be turned into a Sentinel of Cinder and given great power through a process known as ignition. Ignition gave them their youthful strength and agility back, and so much more. Their Cinder rune was exponentially increased in power, and their blood infused with power. The heart also increased the lifespan of the Sentinels by 100 years. A team returned to the main chapter on Sholdas with the heart and placed it in the ownership of the king. So since 13,000 BCE, there have been about 85 generations of Sentinels. These days, the Cinder Order is made up of a very small portion of pure Sholdians. Their main way of getting more members is taking in foundlings, orphans that they find, or children who lost their way. Let us move on to the next aspect of the Order, the two separate paths that one may take in its ranks. What? You think you can do both paths? What a grand and intoxicating innocence. As mentioned earlier, not all members of the Order become warriors. Depending on the choice of the High Elders, a foundling will go one of two paths. The path of hunting and killing demons, where they begin as an initiate, or the path of supporting the knights, research, weapon creation, magic, and wisdom, starting as a Syndate. Since the Syndates do not go through a combat trial and won't get armor fused, their faces are simply branded with the seal of the Cinder Order. The Syndate path leads to becoming an elder and possible arch-elder. The king has ultimate authority over the Order, and the arch-elder has a similar amount, but the king can veto anything. Unlike the king, the arch-elder position is not obtained through combat, but instead seniority and proven skill in cinder magic, usually helped by creating a new method of spell, etc. I will now introduce you to the ranks of the Order. As you know, a foundling can go the path of the initiate or the Syndate. Apologies if I keep saying Syndate wrong. It should be like Syndate, date like the fruit. The initiate follows the path of the warrior, exploring whatever planet they originate from and killing demons. After an initiate's trial, they become a knight. A knight is the lowest rank aside from initiate and has access to a small amount of weapons and magic. This includes the base cinder rune they are given after their trial, their armor, hallowed eyes, and now a demon steel longsword and chain whip. Assume all the equipment they are given is forged from demon steel, okay? As the knight proves themselves by killing demons and showing great combat prowess, they can rise to the rank of High Knight. A High Knight does not have many exciting upgrades, so on to Lord Knight. A Lord Knight now has access to a shield that retracts into one of their gauntlets. Badass, right? A crossbow, a spear, and a stronger cinder rune. Rising above Lord Knight takes significantly more work than before, but with enough effort they can rise to the rank of Paladin. They now have access to a claymore, similarly another upgrade to their rune, and now a chain whip fitted with a spike that fires from their gauntlets. Even more badass than the shield. A Paladin can have 2 shields, 2 whips or one of each, since they have 2 gauntlets. Personally, I'd choose 2 whips and just wreck shit and swoop around like Spider-Man or something. Next is High Paladin, another cinder improvement, but interestingly you get 2 serrated katanas to dual wield. That's cool as shit. The Lord Paladin is the penultimate rank in the warrior line, and their weaponry reflects that. They now have some of the most powerful cinder magic. They get a battle axe, a demon steel, weave cape for extra protection, retractable blades in their gauntlets that can be installed with the whip or shield, and finally, the Arch-Elder himself will bless one of their weapons with magic that allows a Lord Paladin to telekinetically recall it to them, like Thor's hammer Mjolnir. A Lord Paladin is truly a force to be reckoned with, but after the Lord Paladin is the strongest of the Order, the Sentinels. When a generation of Sentinels has passed, the king chooses 12 old Lord Paladins to return to the main Order stronghold on Sholdas. These Lord Paladins are the absolute best warriors in the Order, and they are put through the process of ignition. They are given their youth back and another 100 years exactly of life. These sentinels have superhuman strength even compared to the Lord Paladins. Their healing is unmatched, so much so that the skin under their armor heals and the plating falls off eventually, so the sentinels have to keep reattaching plates. They don't even need armor, however, since their skin itself could stop the sharpest blades, most likely even a shot from an Andromian railgun. Their Cinder rune is now so powerful that they can create massive balls of swirling flame, or fire themselves up into the air to then come down and strike their enemies like a holy meteor. It truly is glorious. I don't have as much to say about the Sin-Date path. They rise the ranks by proving skill in magic and helping and healing the knights. A Sin-Date rises to becoming a Magi, the lowest rank, then to a Shaman. The Shaman are the ones responsible for healing knights. Afterwards, they may rise to High Shaman, of course. Next is the rank of Elder. Elders are responsible for the creation of weapons, training initiates in Sin-Dates, and assisting with the running of the Knight Trials. Then the High Elder position is next. They are responsible for running the Knight Trials, the strengthening of runes, seeing through the creation of new knights with the vat of boiling demon blood and applying the Cinder rune, etc., and administration of the chapter as a whole. Finally, there is the Arch-Elder position. The Arch-Elder officially has the same power as King, but can be vetoed by the King at any point. They are responsible for the overall direction of the Order and assisting the King with ignition. The Magi path is very important to the operation of the Order, but clearly are not as exciting as the Knight path. And now we shall delve into the naming conventions that the Order uses for its people. It's quite interesting in my humble opinion, so pay attention. Wait, did I say humble? I'm a god. How can a god be humble? It seems even I have a grand and intoxicating innocence. The Order of Cinder uses a name prefix and suffix system to name their members. The prefix of one's name demonstrates the family they belong to, and the suffix demonstrates their place in the family. These suffixes have meanings. Of course, they range from lost son or daughter, referring to foundlings brought into the Order, to born daughter, which would refer to a child born naturally from a member of the Order. This, however, happens rarely with the warrior side of the Order, since, their genitalia are fused with the demon steel. For each meaning, such as lost son, there are two variations, one given to the eldest lost son of the family and one to the youngest, same for the lost daughter and foundlings of those members. They would be referred to as lost grandchildren. The Order does not have a suffix for born grandchildren, since it doesn't ever happen. Then there is the suffix given to those outcast from the Order. But if they are outcast, why would they take the name in the first place? It doesn't make sense to me. The last suffix you should know about is the one signifying the head of the family. Below this head, a theoretical maximum of 10 members can be in a family. Once the head of the family dies, the head suffix would be transferred to either the highest rank of the lost-born son or daughter, or the eldest, if they are all the same rank. In some cases, a foundling is brought in and cannot fit into a family. This would result in them taking only a suffix and being called Omar or Imar, defaulting to the youngest variation of that place in a family. Sad, isn't it? This unclaimed child can start a family unit of their own and take on a prefix name with the head suffix, but they must first make it to the rank of Lord Knight or High Shaman. I will now display the suffixes and the most common family prefixes on the screen. Take it all in. This will help you identify who different members you hear about even are. Go on. Look at it. Take it in. Just know that these are the most common family names. There are obviously so much more. How would the Order have so many unique people if there were only that many? Like, think about it. Only a max 10 to a family. There have to be more, idiot. Moving on, this is one of the Order's greatest weapons. The dead can still be useful. It's a morbid sentiment, but very true when it comes to the Order of Cinder. This is the explanation of the final army. If the Order of Cinder ever faces a threat so huge it may wipe out the Order itself, there is one last contingency in place. Under every Order stronghold is a mass grave where each fallen member, that can be recovered of that chapter, is encased in a thin layer of demon steel and preserved. Under shoulders is the grand grave which contains the most deceased and the most powerful of them. Each knight has a Cinder rune carved into them. That Cinder rune has a latent connection to the soul of the knight even after it has been incorporated into the soul well. With a strong enough power source, such as any piece of Altium or the crystal of a dead star, every dead knight in the graves can have enough essence returned to their body that would allow them to fight, use their cinder magic, but not have any higher order of thought. The masses would be aimless. However, with an artifact such as the Amina Annulus, the wearer could control the undead masses. By 2020 CE, the graves hold knights numbering in the trillions. If they ever use this army with the Amina Annulus, they could absolutely destroy anything in their path. It's quite impressive. I thank you for staying with me these long 15 minutes. So now we finish with a chilling recount of the events which kick-started the Order and the decisions that led to their current practices. It may be my absolute favorite story in False Gods. Anyone who agrees definitely has taste. The Order of Cinder is a curious specimen. The Order was founded long ago when Apollyon first left Hell and attacked Shouldas. He managed to kill a large percentage of the population before Nazareth stepped in to stop the battle. One of the surviving hunters from the attacked town started to scrap the metal used by Apollyon's armies. He also gathered the town's most scholarly elders to study the writings of the weaponry. This man was, of course, Cassius Cinder, the first king of Cinder. He and his elders created a rudimentary magic that came to be called Cinder in the coming generations. It was basic and pretty much just gave the user above-average strength, durability, and speed. The interesting part was the fire. With enough strength, a knight of Cinder could create fire from their fist. That fire was specially crafted to be effective against demons. It disrupted their power and hurt them quite a lot. It was impressive for a man-adjacent race to devise an almost entirely new form of magic that quickly. There were only 5 knights in Generation 1. They did not have the hallowed eyes back then, so looking for demons was more of a presumptuous witch hunt rather than looking specifically for definitive demons. The other thing is that Apollyon wouldn't start the regular production and use of observation demons for about 95 years after the Order of Cinder was founded. Half the demon killings were just people that the knights deemed suspicious. The other half were stragglers from Apollyon's original invasion. Cassius grew older, and more people joined his group. 5 years after its founding, it came to be known as the Order of Cinder, and Cassius was made the official leader. In the coming years, they would refer to him as king. Cassius had a son and daughter, Miranda and Miroth Cinder. He loved both his children, but loved his daughter the most. He didn't want her to be in any danger, so he made her the first Cinder-trained magi, and then put his son, Miroth, on track to be the next king. After his children became preteens, there was a mass recruitment of members on Shouldas. The number of knights grew massively, so much so that Cassius and Miroth had to implement a ranking system for chain of command and reward incentives. It worked quite well, and the Order soon became a sort of enforcement on Shouldas. You couldn't turn your head on a street without seeing a Knight of Cinder. People also learned to act in ways that didn't bring suspicion to themselves. For a time, there was a very small amount of unnecessary violence on Shouldas. That was until Cassius disappeared and Miroth took over as king when he was 31. Miroth was a paranoid man. His father filled his head with the idea that demons could pop out of a portal at any time and attack. So Miroth started a much harsher recruitment program and random searches and interrogations of Shouldians. He was unnerved by the fact there were no confirmed demon killings in decades. So he began rounding up people that had even a hint of suspicion. Miranda kept trying to act as counsel, but it fell on deaf ears. Continually aggravated by wrong demon killings, Miroth commissioned the Order Magi to develop a way of seeing demons. This quelled Miranda's worries for a time, and she spearheaded the creation of what she dubbed hallowed eyes. In order to calibrate the enchantment, they required living demons. This was a difficult requirement since the Order had purged most of the stragglers. After extensive searching, a group of knights found 3 demons deep in a cave, and showing a huge amount of restraint as Knights of Cinder, they took the demons back to the stronghold. At this point, Miroth had a child and Miranda was pregnant. Miranda finished the enchantment when she was a few days from delivery. Miroth was adamant that he be the first to receive the eyes, and so he did. However, the age of the person receiving the hallowed eyes is extremely important. It must be done before they reach 20 or it backfires. Miroth's eyes were hallowed, and he saw a glow around his child, around Miranda, and everyone else in the room. Miroth flew into a rage and thrust a sword through his child's chest and murdered Miranda. He began attacking everyone else in the room and killed nearly 8 before he was cut down. After that, he was referred to as Mad Miroth. In a panic, the nearest Magi cut Miranda's child out of her and performed the Cinder Rune ritual on it. They then raised the child and had an elder rule in the meantime. The elders were worried about the child growing up to be like Miroth, so they covered up the Mad Miroth situation and began more strict control of information and magic. They also discouraged having children and instead promoted taking in orphans. They were concerned that part of the reason for Miroth's madness was because of the blood relation with his sister and son. Luckily, there were plenty of orphans on shoulders with names ranging vastly. With names not matching, the elders devised a system of naming that identified your adopted family and your position in it. To honor Cassius, they gave Miranda's child the family name of Cas and the position of born son or Tyr, so Dagoth Cinder. Dagoth was a just king for the most part. He took in some foundlings himself, and the order continued with little problem for a long time. That was until late in Dagoth's rule when observation demons showed up. The knights with their hallowed eyes noticed them immediately and struck swiftly, but the observer demons just kept coming. The order couldn't keep up all the hunting with the other parts of their lives. Additionally, the knights' payment was starting to bankrupt the order's treasury. So with the new generations, the elders switched gears. The classes began teaching extensive, somewhat edited history, and were taught their life was for service to the order and nothing else. After a few runs, they were able to eliminate pay for every single member. It was becoming cult-like. To prevent rebellion, they instituted a new tenet, a vow of silence. And to further tie down the knights to the order, they began the horrifying initiation process. After receiving the Cinder Rune, initiates would be boiled alive in the blood of demons. Their skin is melted and armor plating is bonded with said skin, whilst bolted directly to bone and muscle. It was brutal, but it somehow made the knights more effective combat and loyalty-wise. The knights had better mobility, a stronger Cinder Rune, and stronger armor overall. They also trained more magi to keep the knights in check and heal, repair them and their weapons. This was the time when the latest blood descendant of Cassius disappeared, just as Cassius did before them. As a result, the Arch-Elder chose 2 high paladins to duel, and one become king. This fight ended with Melamat becoming the first honorary member of the Cinder family as Melamat Cinder. The order would continue like this until around 3.7 million BCE, when a stray Andromean warship crashed on shoulders from a nearby battle. The order would repair the ship to the best of their ability, and a colony to Arith, then Mortis, Quasta, and eventually make it to Chagrin around 2.7 million BCE. They would construct their castle there and get run out later. The rest is history. And that's it for the Order of Cinder for now. They still have a hand to play in the universe, and their members individually leave large impacts on the world. But that's a story for another time. I will see you again. You can take that as a promise, a threat, or both. I really don't care. I'm a god. Why would a god care about you? Goodbye.